bam, bim, 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 bam. Bim, 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 bam. Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom. Bim bam, bim 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 bam, bim 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 bam, bim bam, bim 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 bam, bim 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 bam.
Shabbat shalom, everyone.
Shabbat shalom.
Welcome, everyone, to our services this evening. I'm Rabbi Benjamin Zober, and with me, of course,
Rabbi Sarah Zober, and welcome.
We are so glad that you've decided to bring in Shabbat with us, whether you are here in person or out there in internet land. We are praying, as we always do, out of Mishkan Tefillah, a Reform Siddur. It will have all of the readings and everything you need to follow along. If you are online and would like a copy, you can find it at sinaireno.org/live. If this is your first time praying out of it, or if it's been a while, what we try to do is one from either one of the two pages. On the right-hand page, we have the traditional Hebrew and a translation and transliteration. And on the left-hand page, we have alternate readings that sometimes give us different ways to get into or understand what we're doing. So we will generally do one from either side and then move on. We will do our very best to shout out the page numbers and point in all the directions as we go. And one way or another, we will all end up the same place, which is Kiddush at the end of the service. We begin with a reading which is found on page 6. We read responsively in the middle of the page. May the door of this synagogue be wide enough to receive all who hunger for love, all who are lonely for friendship.
May it welcome all who have cares to unburden, thanks to express, hopes to nurture.
May the door of this synagogue be narrow enough to shut out pettiness and pride, envy and enmity.
May its threshold be no stumbling block to young or straying feet.
May it be too high to admit complacency, selfishness, and harshness.
May this synagogue be, for all who enter, the doorway to a richer and more meaningful life.
We actually turn backwards to page 2 for our candle lighting. Oh, and we'd like to invite Rosie up to light our Sabbath lights. Get that first one. Oh. So close. So close. Thought these long ones would. Once these get lit, they'll burn forever. But there we go. Ata Adonai להדליק נר, להדליק נר של Shabbat. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you.
We continue welcoming Shabbat with some songs. Our first one is Hine Matov, which can be found on page 10.
Hine Matov u'manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine Matov u'manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine Matov, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine Matov, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine Matov u'manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine Matov u'manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine Matov, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine Matov, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine Matov u'manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine Matov u'manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. For our next song, you can actually turn to the blue card that you were given in your Siddur. On one of the sides there is Shir Chadash. Nope, that's not right. Shirul Adonai kol haaretz. Shirul Adonai shir chadash. Shirul Adonai kol haaretz. Shirul Adonai shir chadash. Sing unto God, all the earth, a new song. I will sing unto God a new song. Sing unto God, and we'll all sing along. All the earth, a new song unto God. Shirul Adonai kol haaretz. Shirul Adonai shir chadash. I will sing unto God a new song. Our next song can be found on page 20. We will sing L'Chadodi, our Welcome to the Sabbath Bride. As is our custom, we will be singing verses 1, 2, 5, and 9. And on the 9th and final verse, if you are able, please rise in body or in spirit and turn to either the exterior door of the synagogue, or if you're online, pick your favorite exterior door to the room that you're in. And we will bow together as we say, Boi Kala, and welcome the Sabbath bride into our midst. Lechadodi likrat kala, yadadai, 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 de Shabbat mekabela. Lechadodi likrat kala, yadadai, 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 de Shabbat mekabela. Shamor vezachor bedimur echad, ishbianu el hameyuchad, Adonai echad, ushmo echad, Shemo tiferet v'lit tehillah, Lechadodi likrat kalai Adonai 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 Leshabbat Kabbalat Lechadodi likrat kalai Adonai 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 Leshabbat Kabbalat Likrat Shabbat lechu b'necha ki mekor ha'bracha merosh mikeren besucha sofa aseh b'machshavat milah lechadodi likrat kalai Adonai 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 Shabbat Kabbalat Lechadodi likrat kalai Adonai 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 Shabbat Kabbalat Hitorari Hitorari Hima Oreku Liori Uri, Uri, Shita Beri, Tevor Adonai, Alai, Nigla, Lechadodi likrat kalai Adonai, 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 Leshabbat Kabbalat, Lechadodi likrat kalai Adonai, 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 Shabbat Kabbalat Boi v'shalom ateret v'adat Gam v'simcha u'b'tola Toch emunei am segula Boi chala, boi chala Lechadodi likrat kalai Adonai 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 Leshabbat Kabbalat Lechadodi likrat kalai Adonai 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 Leshabbat Kabbalat.
You may be seated. We continue now together with Chatzi Kaddish, which can be found on page 26. Yidkara v'yidkara shmei Rabbah.
Amen.
V'yalma divrach yirutei v'yamrich malchutei. B'chayechon u'byomechon u'v'chayedecho beit Yisrael. Bagala, bagala, ubizmahan kariv, v'yimeru.
Amen.
Yehei shmei Rabbah mevarach, le'olam lo me'omaya, yitbarach, yitbarach, v'yishtabach, v'yishpar, v'yitromam, v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar, v'yitaleh, v'yithalal, shmei dekudesha barichu, leila min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata b'nechemata, tamihiran be'alma, v'meru. Amen. We continue with Baruchu, which can be found on page 28. If you are able, please rise.
Baruch et Adonai
We continue together in the English on page 30. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, who speaks the evening into being, skillfully opens the gates, thoughtfully alters the time and changes the seasons, and arranges the stars in their heavenly courses according to plan. You are creator of day and night, rolling light away from darkness and darkness from light, transforming day into night and distinguishing one from the other. Adonai Tzevaot is your name. Ever-living God, may you reign continually over us into eternity. Blessed are you, Adonai, who brings on evening. Baruch atah Adonai, Hamariv Aravim. Continue on page 32. Everlasting love, you offered your people Israel by teaching us Torah and mitzvot, laws and precepts. Therefore, Adonai our God, when we lie down and when we rise up, we will meditate on your laws and your commandments. We will rejoice in your Torah forever. Day and night we will reflect on them, for they are our life, and doing them lengthens our days. Never remove your love from us. Praise to you, Adonai, who loves your people Israel.
Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael. The Shema can be found on the next page. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Abad.
You may be seated. We continue together with the V'ahavta, page 36. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha v'chol levavcha uv'chol nafshecha ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה, אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבבך, ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם, בשבתך בביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם. אדוני אלוהיכם emet. We read responsively, page 157. In a world torn by violence and pain, a world far from wholeness and peace, give us the courage to say, Adonai, there is one God in heaven and earth.
The high heavens declare your glory. May earth reveal your justice and love. Page 39.
From bondage in Egypt we were delivered. At Sinai we bound ourselves to your way.
Inspired by prophets and instructed by sages, time and again we overcame oppressive forces.
Though our failings are many and our faults are great, it has been our glory to bear witness to our God, keeping alive in dark ages your vision of a world redeemed.
Let us continue to work for the day when the nations will be one and at peace. Then shall we rejoice as Israel did, singing on the shores of the sea. We turn to page 40 for Mi Chamocha. Yabba bim bim bam, yabba ba bim bam, yabba bim bim bam, yabba ba bim bam, yai dai 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 dai, yabba ba bim bam, yai dai 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 dai, yabba ba bim bam. Mi chamocha, chayalim Adonai. Mi kamocha, nedor hakodesh, noratilot, osefela, noratilot, osefela. Malachutecha, ra'u banecha, bokei hayam lifnei Moshe u'Miriam. Zeli, Zeli, anu ve'amru, Adonai imbo, le'olam va'ed. Yabba bim bim bam, yabba bim bam, yabba bim bim bam, yabba bim bam, yai dai 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 dai, yabba bim bam. Yai dai 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 dai, yabba bim bam. V'nema kifat Adonai et Yaakov, ugalo miad chazak mimenu. Baruch atah Adonai, Gal Yisrael.
We turn to page 43 and read together at the top of the page. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Adonai, help us to walk with good companions, to live with hope in our hearts and eternity in our thoughts, that we may lie down in peace and rise up waiting to do your will.
Baruch atah Adonai, haporei sukat shalom aleinu, ve'al kol amo Yisrael, ve'al Yerushalayim.
Vishamru can be found on the very next page.
Veshamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, la'asot et ha-Shabbat ledoratam berit olam. Veshamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, la'asot et ha-Shabbat ledoratam berit olam. Beini ubein b'nei Yisrael, odi le'olam, odi le'olam. Veshamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, la'asot et ha-Shabbat le'dorotam berit olam. Ki sheshet yamim Asa Adonai, et ha-shamayim ve'et ha'aretz, veshamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, la'asot et ha-Shabbat le'dorotam berit olam. Ubayom hashvi'i shavat vayinafash, Shabbat vayinafash, Shabbat vayinafash. Veshamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, la'asot et ha-Shabbat Kabbalat Shabbat לדורותם ברית העולם. Who says the Macarena is dead?
And if you enjoyed my dancing just there, or really didn't enjoy my dancing, be sure to mark your calendar for the Purim Spiel, where you'll see even more of my dancing, along with people who have actual dancing talent.
It's true.
We turn now to the Amidah, which begins on page 46. If you are able, please rise. Adonai sefatai tiftach ufi agita ilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor, Hanora, El Elyon, Gomer Chasadim Tovim, V'koneh Hakol, V'zocher Chasdei Avot V'imahot, U'mevi Geula Livnei Bneihem, L'man Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Ozer U'Moshia U'Magin, Baruch atah Adonai, Magin Abraham, Bezrat Sarah, Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai, Mechayei HaKol atah Rab leHoshia, Mashiv HaRuach U'Morid HaGashem, Mechakel Chaim Bechesed, Mechayei HaKol Berachamim Rabim, Somech Noflim Berofeh Cholim, U'Matir Asurim, U'Mekayem Emunato, Mishenei Afar, Michamocha Bal Geburat, U'Midom Elah, Melech Memit U'Mechayeh, U'Matzmiach Yeshua, V'ne'eman Atan Hachayot HaKol, Baruch atah Adonai, Mechayeh HaKol. Atah kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, u'kadoshim b'chol yom ya'alucha salah. Baruch atah Adonai, Ha'el HaKadosh. We continue silently to page 62. Please be seated when you are finished or when you feel ready.
We turn to page 62 at the bottom for Oseh Shalom. Oseh Shalom Bimrama, Uyaseh Shalom Aleinu, Ve'al Kol Yisrael, Ve'imru, Amen. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu, Ve'al Kol Yisrael. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu, Ve'al Kol Yisrael. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu, Ve'al Kol Yisrael. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu, Ve'al Kol Yisrael. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu, Ve'al Kol Yisrael.
At this time, we turn to our Torah service, Seder Kriyat HaTorah. We begin by reading at the top of page 245. Assemble the people, men, women, and children, and the strangers in your cities to hear, to learn, to revere Adonai your God, to observe faithfully the words of this Torah, and let their children who do not yet know it hear, that they too may learn to revere Adonai your God. At this time, we are pleased to invite up John Luis and Bonnie to open our ark and carry our Torah respectively. We turn to page 246, and if you are able, please rise.
Go ahead and open it up. Ki mitzion tetzeh Torah, Ki mitzion tetzeh Torah, udevar Adonai mirushalayim. Page 248. Baruch Shenatan Torah, Torah. Baruch Shenatan Torah, Torah. Le'amo Yisrael b'kedushato. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu. Adonai Echad, Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shemo, Gadol Adonai iti, Unerambama Shemo yachdav, Lecha Adonai V'hagevura, v'hatiferet, v'hanetzach, v'hahod, ki cho b'shamayim u'ba'aretz, ki cho b'shamayim u'ba'aretz, Adonai hamamlacha, v'yamit na'aseh lechol rosh. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu v'hishtachavu lehakodsho. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu v'hishtachavu lehakodsho. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu. Romemu Adonai ve'yishtachavu lehakodsho. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu ve'yishtachavu lehakodsho.
At this time, we invite up.
Please be seated.
Oh, sorry.
It's not going to make you stand up the whole time.
We invite up Marilyn Roberts, Ta'amod Miriam Shlomit Bat Felek Vagolda Le'aliyah HaTorah.
If you'd like to follow along, you can follow along in your blue booklets. Rabbi Benjamin will be reading from Parshat Shemot, which is this week's Parsha, Exodus 1, verses 15 through 17.
Baruch Hu Adonai Hamborach.
Baruch Adonai Hambarach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamborach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam. Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Hamim V'natan Lanu Et Torto. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Vayomer Melech Mitzrayim Lemildot Ha'ivrit Asher Shem Ha'echad Shifra V'Shem Ha'shenit Puah Vayomer Bayaredchen Et Ha'ivriot Uraiten Al Ha'avanim Im Ben Hu V'ha'miten oto v'im bativ v'chaya v'tarena hamildot et ha'elohim v'lo asuhu ka'asher davar diber alehen melech Mitzrayim v'techayena et hayeladim.
Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam. Asher natan lanu Torah emet b'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen. Mishaberach avotenu ve'imotenu, Avraham, Yitzchak, ve'Yaakov, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, ve'Leah. May the one who blessed our ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebekah, Rachel, and Leah, bless you as you have come up to Torah in honor of God and Torah. May you merit from the Holy One of blessing, protection, rescue from any trouble or distress, and from any illness, minor or serious. May God send blessing and success in your every endeavor, and together with all Israel, and let us say, Amen. Yasher koach. With our Sefer Torah in our midst, we think now of those in our community who need a bit of healing, whether it is of body or of mind or of spirit. At this time, we are thinking of Wendy Alderman, Laura Bartleson, Kathy Bartlett, Tracy Bartlett, Sue Burkhammer, Neil Calder, Laura Cohen, Pat Davey, Tom Davey, Alan Gordon, Stephen Gould, Tatiana Granoff, Margaret Haberlin, Marlene Harris, Harvey Higdon, Laura Jawad, Kevin Knox, Dave Levine, Harav Miriam Bat Shifra V'Pinchas, Harav Miriam Yael Chaya Bat Sarah, Nechama Chana Bat Shmuel Yitzchak V'Reut, Tim Ober, Ruth Petersky, Judy Ramos, Peter Ramos, Ray Riker, Shirley Rutkovitz, Sarah Bat Chava, Marianne Schenker, Charlie Stuckey, David Torgman, Jessica Wadatz, Bobby Wells, Usher Zelech, everyone affected by the coronavirus in the Jewish and other communities of Ukraine. If there are other names that you wish to share, I encourage you to do so. If you are online and comfortable doing so, in the comments, and if you are present here tonight, please do so when my eyes meet yours.
Norma Cohn and Rabbi Elisa Kopno.
For all of the people we are holding in our hearts and hope for healing, our song of healing can be found on page 253. Mi sheberat avotenu mekor habracha ve'imotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mi sheberach imotenu mekor habracha ve'avotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. At this time, I am pleased to invite up Alexa Foley to help dress our Torah this evening.
We all rise. Go over to Rabbi Ben's side.
Vezot HaTorah asher son Moshe livnei bnei Yisrael al pi Adonai mi'ad Moshe. Yai dai 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 dai. Yai dai 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 dai. Yai dai 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 dai. Yai dai 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 dai. Vezot HaTorah asher son Moshe livnei bnei Yisrael al pi Adonai bi'ad Moshe. Stay here, Jameson. Don't run away so fast. This is good practice.
We turn together to page 257 and read responsively.
When Torah entered the world, freedom entered it. The whole Torah exists only to establish peace.
Its highest teaching is love and kindness. What is hateful to you, do not do to any person.
That is the whole Torah. All the rest is commentary. Go and learn it. Those who study Torah are the true guardians of civilization.
Honoring one another, doing acts of kindness, and making peace. These are our highest duties. But the study of Torah is equal to them all because it leads to them all.
Let us learn in order to teach. Let us learn in order to do.
Together we turn to page 256. Can you open up the ark?
Et Chaim hi l'machazikim ba betorcha me'ushan derachecha dechinoa bechol netivotecha Shalom, Hashirenu Chodesh, Chodesh Yameinu, Chodesh Yameinu, Kekadem.
You may be seated. This weekend, we begin the book of Exodus in the midst of a protracted time of polarization. Politics have been ugly for over a decade at this point. Headlines about the climate, natural disaster, and species extinction get increasingly more dire every time we open the paper. And we can see around us that inequality is slowly and sometimes quickly stealing the futures of our children and our children's children. In the face of this, it's very easy to despair. What is our country? What is our world coming? How could we, just one person, change any of it? In the face of rising global anti-Semitism and white supremacy, what can we do to fight? Now, Rabbi Benjamin and I strive hard to write sermons that are relevant to your everyday lives, that bring wisdom of Torah to bear on the issues of today. But lately I've wondered, are we writing to empower our people to action? Or are we merely screaming biblical citations impotently into the void? It is sometimes hard in times like these to see the impact of one small action, when you can also see that there have been so many wrong actions that have come before it. This weekend is, additionally, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. weekend, a weekend where we are supposed to celebrate the immense influence that he had on civil rights here in America. Throughout the years of celebrating the holiday, we have all heard our rabbis talking about Dr. King's friendship with Abraham Joshua Heschel. These two men were men who wrote, as the show says, like they were running out of time. And their voices became the moral compasses of their generation. They embodied the prophetic voices of Black and Jewish Americans locked in the struggle for justice, a struggle that is rooted in shared biblical values and a feeling deep in our bones that when our neighbor suffers, so too do we suffer. Through their action and activism and writings, many of these men's dreams were realized. When others cautioned them to stop or be quiet or tone it down, they refused, instead believing that this country could do better and be better if only we kept bending it each moment closer toward justice. There's a concept in Judaism that says that we often stand zechut avot, on the merit of our ancestors. What this is supposed to mean is that we ourselves are worthy of God's attention because our ancestors were worthy of it. And God, who has a particularly long memory, cuts us a heck of a lot of slack when we mess up because of the zechut avot, the merit of our ancestors. Now, when it comes to invoking Rabbi Heschel's work next to Dr. King in the civil rights movement, I think too many of us today stand too much on zechut avot, on the merit of our ancestors, rather than continuing the work of liberation ourselves. It has been almost 60 years since the March on Selma, and most of us in this room would have been too young or not yet born to claim Rabbi Heschel's action as proof of our own commitment to liberation. So that we begin to stand on our own zechut, our own merit, I want to challenge us to look to the Torah and our rabbi's wisdom, like Dr. King and Rabbi Heschel did, and find our passion for the justice work that lies ahead of us as a community and a nation. Dr. King and Rabbi Heschel certainly use the Tanakh and its stories for inspiration. But I don't want to talk about finding examples from our avot today, from our fathers, but instead of looking at the zechut imachot, the merit of our mothers, to give us some examples of how to find our place in justice work today. This week, the book of Shemot, our people's struggle from slavery to the edge of the promised land, opens with a chilling line that Rabbi Benjamin read for us just a while ago. After a brief genealogical recap to bridge the first few hundred years since the book of Genesis ended, the Torah tells us, "Now there arose a new king over Egypt who did not know Joseph." It is here where our slavery begins, where we go from diasporic greatness that we had in Egypt in Joseph's time to downfall and the harsh oppression of slavery. We hear in a midrash on today's portion that the conditions of slavery so demoralized the Hebrew men in Egypt, that they gave up their will to live. After Pharaoh's decree came down to kill all the newborn Hebrew boys, all the Hebrew men decided as one to divorce their wives, saying that they would rather die than have sons for the Pharaoh to kill. They broke apart every family and declared that this was the end of the Hebrew civilization. This midrash goes on to tell us that the Hebrew women took a different tact in the face of Egyptian cruelty and oppression. After days of back-breaking labor, the Hebrew women would go down to the river and fetch water to bathe their exhausted husbands, and then seduce them every night. While the men had been broken into inaction, the women knew that killing our civilization would be an even worse fate than the one Pharaoh had resigned them to. These women took the matter into their own hands, and they acted to save our people in defiance of the Pharaoh and in the face of their husbands' fear and inaction. Interestingly, upon reflecting on this passage, our rabbis tell us that it was because of the merit of the righteous women of that generation that our forefathers were redeemed from Egypt. They go on to say that what the men had done was a sin for which they would have to repent for all time. That to despair and to give up living in the face of injustice is wrong. Because of the courage and defiance of our women, we continued to grow and multiply into the Erev Rav, the mixed multitude of people whom God redeemed from Egypt. Now, while we in America may not have a new king, white supremacy has risen its ugly head from the grave, where many of us thought we'd banished it after the Second World War. This is a specter that dresses well enough to get fashion coverage in our media and is articulate and manipulative enough to infiltrate the highest echelons of leadership in our country. But we Jews must recognize this evil. It is the same evil that kept us othered in the early 20th century, segregated to our own clubs and neighborhoods. It is the same evil that we said never again to almost 80 years ago. But it is powerful, so powerful that some of us have become like the Hebrew men, despairing, bitterly refusing to enjoy the pleasures of life or even to create new things. How can we become more like the Hebrew women who continued to love and create and hope in the face of similar great evil? What needs to come forth from each of us, despite the more powerful among us being afraid or trying to stop us from acting? How do we nurture joy in hard times the same way that the Hebrew women did? Now, joy as resistance is not the only paradigm of resistance our mothers employed in the face of oppression. We see quite possibly the first example of nonviolent non-cooperation in the actions of the two Hebrew midwives named Shifra and Puah. They are ordered by the Pharaoh to kill the newborn boys of the Hebrews on the birth stool. And instead of doing so, they refuse to cooperate with the order. They are called to the Pharaoh to explain their actions, and they make up a story that the Hebrew women give birth so quickly that they are unable to comply with the order. Not only do they remain unpunished by the Pharaoh, in return, we see God smiling upon them and making them leaders of houses in their own right. Non-cooperation and civil disobedience of unjust laws has a long history in this country, from tea boycotts at the time of the Revolution to refusing to turn in fugitives from early colonial days through slavery and up to this day. In his autobiography, Dr. King wrote, "I became convinced that non-cooperation with evil is as much a moral obligation as is cooperation with good." The midwives Shifra and Puah remind us that there is nothing moral about obeying immoral laws. And they challenge us to do what is right, despite what any law may say. Undeterred by Shifra and Puah's non-cooperation, the Pharaoh changes the law, now ordering every Hebrew person to cast every Hebrew infant boy into the river. Yocheved, Moses' mother, hides him in defiance for 3 months. But when she can no longer hide him, she obeys the letter of the law exactly by casting him into the river. However, first she puts him in a small bassinet made of reeds so that he floats instead of drowns. She obeys the law exactly as the Pharaoh has given it to her. But she does not let it serve the Pharaoh's aims of killing her child. Once again, non-cooperation is found in the actions of a Hebrew woman. All of our mother's acts of resistance here were nonviolent. The Torah, and indeed the Midrash along with it, endorses these forms of resistance: protest and persuasion, non-cooperation and direct action. I hope that all of this sounds familiar to us on this Martin Luther King weekend. The Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. wrote in his thundering sermon about the Vietnam War, "I am convinced that if we are to get on the right side of the world revolution, we as a nation must undergo a radical revolution of values. We must rapidly begin the shift from a thing-oriented society to a person-oriented society. When machines and computers, profit motives, and property rights are considered more important than people, the giant triplets of racism, extreme materialism, and militarism are incapable of being conquered." I am certain that Reverend King was and continues to be correct. It is to the people around us and not to institutions or material things that we owe our allegiance. Whether these people are Jewish or not, we owe it to fight for them due to our mission as the chosen people, as the people chosen to give God's message of a more just creation to the world. We cannot be the men of today's portion who languished in apathy and despair and caused more damage by their inaction than was actually caused by the Pharaoh's actions. We must instead be those Hebrew women who in this society had so much less power than those Hebrew men. But those Hebrew women made their slavery one action at a time into something more akin to Reverend King's person-oriented rebellion. Yocheved, Shifra and Puah, all the unjustly divorced Hebrew wives, these women saw that it was the people who were most important, and they acted defiantly over and over to prove it. So how do we find our own way to act? We look around at society with real clarity. We have to really look into the systems that govern us and into the eyes of the people around us. And then we have to work for the people, not just the ones we always see, but as the Torah tells us, the widow, the orphan, and the stranger. Perhaps today, these are the woman who has just buried her husband or son due to violence. Perhaps they are the child who is losing her health insurance. Perhaps they are the young person who is a victim of a hate crime. It is only by looking at those around us and fulfilling the needs of those around us that we can set ourselves up to be worthy, to be redeemed, and reach the promised land. For those of us who can write and march and donate money to bend the world towards justice, this is good. But that kind of work is not the only good. Even without these resources, we can help a struggling single parent. We can bring a friend lunch because we know they're hurting and need someone to talk to. We can write to our representatives, thanking them for their hard work or making our voices heard in opposition. All of these actions seem very small, but our Torah portion reminds us through the Hebrew women that even small actions can have great impact. One birth at a time, 2 midwives saved our civilization. Through deliberate disobedience, Yocheved saved her son, who would be the one to grow up to persuade the Pharaoh to let us go, allowing all of us to leave slavery and march to the promised land. No matter the power we think we wield or do not wield, we have an obligation to try and bend the world towards justice, to save every life we can. For we're told that if we save even only one life, it is as if we have saved the entire world. We Jews are the people chosen to teach the world that justice. And in the face of emboldened white supremacy that wants us shaken and despairing, we must be able to hear the call for justice that runs through every story of our holy book. We must rise up to act justly in small ways and big ways, because our unsettled world needs this message of justice. And we must find the work of justice that lets us get up every morning feeling part of a noble resistance against the evils that plague the world that is. Like the Hebrew women and like Dr. King, we must have the courage to stand tall against injustice. Like the Hebrew women and like Dr. King, we must be willing to speak truth to power. And like the Hebrew women and like Dr. King, we must be willing to put people and life before anything material and institutional. Every MLK weekend, I find myself drawn to the words of the great American poet Langston Hughes. This poem reminds me of what's at stake and what we're all fighting for in our long struggle for justice. He writes, "Freedom will not come today, this year, nor ever through compromise and fear. I have as much right as the other fellow has to stand on my own 2 feet and own land. I tire so of hearing people say, 'Let things take their course. Tomorrow is another day.' I do not need freedom when I'm dead. I cannot live on tomorrow's bread. Freedom is a strong seed planted in a great need. I live here too. I want freedom, just as you." May God bless us, not because of the greatness of our ancestors, but because of our own actions, today and every day that we stand up and bend our world towards justice. Ken Yehi Ratzon.
We turn at this time to the Aleinu, which can be found at the bottom of page 282. I would like to invite up Sasha Gorden and Ramona Iser and Wilder. If you want to come up as well, you are welcome to
And
join them.
Victor, does Victor
No.
want to come too? Is he asleep? No, good. All right, come on up.
All right. Yeah, come on up, Ramona. I'll show you where to go.
We'll do a whole crew of people. We all rise and turn to page 282. Okay, that's fine. Come on up. Here, Victor, come here. Can I have you open up this one? Wilder, why don't you open up the other one? There you go. You open up that one. Yep, open up all the way. There you go. All right, now stand here. Cool, huh? All right. Now stand here while we sing, and then we'll tell you when to close it again, okay? Are you ready? Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, l'ateit gedula le'otzer b'reishit, shelo asanu k'goyei ha'aratzot, velo samanu k'mishpachot ha'adama, shelo sam chelkeinu kahem, v'gor aleinu k'chol hamonam, v'anachnu korim, ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא.
Page 285. Let the time not be distant, O God, when all shall turn to you in love, when corruption and evil shall give way to integrity and goodness, when superstition shall no longer enslave the mind, nor idolatry blind the eye. O may all created in your image become one in spirit and one in friendship, forever united in your service. Then shall your realm be established on earth, and the word of your prophet fulfilled. Adonai will reign forever and ever. Page 287.
ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו
Wow.
Thank you very much.
You may be seated.
You do this.
We think now of our loved ones whom death has recently taken from us, those who died at this season in years past, and those whom we have drawn into our hearts with our own. At this time, we remember Leonard Fusari, James Holly, Ken Hecht, Roberta Smallreich, Edward Gingold, Cookie Javinsky, Carl Weinberg, Al Grossman, Jeff Blank, Richie Zorn, Catherine Linsky Foley, Henry Hank Froelich, Setsko Olenichik, Barbara Gonzalez, and Aaron Yosef. In this Shabbat, we commemorate the art sites of Leah Kahn Gerel, Peter A. Alsberg, PhD, Gustav Kempler, Howard Freeman Weidman, Rosalie Krochmal, Irving Rappaport, DMD, Anna Mays, Elaine Pokart, Barbara Ballantyne, Hyman Beckman, Vera Stern, Selmar Thal Messenger, Adelia Adler, Max Horowitz, Stanley I. Siegel, Philip Brustein, Maurice Cooper, Eleanor Fink, Elizabeth Ruth Rassler, Guy N. Richardson, Gregory Reimer. If there are other names that you wish to add, I encourage you again online in the comments, and if you are present here when my eyes meet yours.
Debbie Friedman. Joshua Marcus.
Kaddish Yatom can be found on page 294. If it is your custom, please rise. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah be'alma divrach irutei v'yamlich malchutei b'chayechon uvyomechon uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael ba'agara v'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevarach le'olam u'olmei almaya yitbarach v'ishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh V'yitadar, v'yitarei, v'yitaral, shemei dekudesha barichu. Leila min kol birchata v'shirata, tush bechata v'nechemata, ta'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. Osei shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu, Ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. May the one who creates harmony on high bring peace to us and to all who mourn, to which we say, amen. You may be seated. Alexa, if you would be so kind as to share some announcements with us this evening.
Okay, sit down. We got a few. Thank yous for tonight. The rabbi's over. Welcome back. And I can't really thank myself, so I will thank every member on the board who comes and greets and is the first person you see. The live stream tech, Michael Gorden and Rose back there, thank you guys so much. And we need volunteers. We could use some help. Torah chanters, please contact the rabbis or Marilyn Roberts. Live stream text, please contact Michael Gordon. We have the to-go net for those who are a person here in Temple Sinai. There is challah outside and juice in the lobby as you leave the synagogue after the service.
Many thanks to Morgan.
Yes, Morgan's covering for Crystal, which I don't know if we even mentioned. Week after week after week, we have Crystal, and she was not here tonight, so Morgan blessedly stepped in, and everything's all taken care of. So you've got a little notch. For Zoom, those of you who are online, sinaireno.org/live. All details are there to participate. Saturday morning at 10 a.m., we have Torah study via Zoom, starting with Genesis 50:15. For details, sinaireno.org/Torah study. Help wanted. Please join the Passover Seder Committee. Our Passover Seder Committee is being chaired by Sheila Sirkin, and she is planning our Passover Seder for 2023, but she could use a lot of help. If you've ever been there, it's a great thing. Doesn't happen with one person. Sheila is asking folks to join her on the committee to help plan the Seder and make this year an awesome celebration for everyone. If you would like to join the Passover Seder Committee, please contact Sheila by email, smg14618@gmail.com, and let her know. Excuse me. For those of you with a flair for the dramatic, and the occasional Purim spielers wanted now. Practice has begun for a Surah's line, Temple Sinai's parody of a chorus line. Singers and dancers are needed. We have a part for everyone. Practice is most Sundays. Contact Rabbi Benjamin for details. By the way, this is my good side.
I think you're hired.
If you feel so inclined to be thoughtful in that nature, I'm possibly available. Okay, 5 o'clock tomorrow, Saturday. This is fun, y'all. A Havdalah event illustrating the Haggadah at Temple Sinai. You can help us fill our new Haggadah with your illustrations. After the rabbis lead us in Havdalah, we will have art supplies so you can create illustrations to go on the pages of a new Haggadah that we will produce. Art levels, all art levels and ages are welcome. Feel free to bring your own supplies if you have the ones that you like to work with, all mediums accepted. 10:30 on Sunday, January 29th, the mid-year congregational meeting at Temple Sinai. 4:30 p.m. Sunday, February 5th, Tu B'Shabbat Seder at Temple Sinai. Tickets on sale now at sinaireno.org. The Sinai Library, we would like to mention a couple of things. The Beyond Worlds Book Club is still accepting members. Visit sinaireno.org/library for details. And Restories, the loaning and delivering of books to homebound members. Email sinairenolibrary@gmail.com for information. End scene.
One more thing.
Yes.
Yes.
Sunday, 5 o'clock is the Martin Luther King Community Interfaith Service at McKinley Art.
Sunday at 5 o'clock is the Community Interfaith MLK service at
The McKinley Arts Center.
the McKinley Arts Center.
I'll be there.
Excellent. Our closing song can be found on page 323. We will sing Shalom Aleichem together before heading out to grab some nosh or to sign into Zoom if we are online. I don't even need the keyboard for this one. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei HaSharet, Malachei HaElyon, Mihi Melech, Malachei HaMlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem leShalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei HaElyon, Mihi Melech, Malachei HaMlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Achoni leShalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei HaElyon, Mihi Melech, Malachei HaMlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Seichem leShalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei HaElyon, Mihi Melech, Malachei HaMlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. If you'd like to follow along with Kiddush, you
Page
can follow along on
5.
page 5. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei pari hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam,
Asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav,
v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kodsho, v'ahava u'vratzon hinechilanu. Zikaron lema'aseh bereshit, ki hu yom techila lemikra'e kodesh, zecher letziat Mitzrayim, ki banu b'chata ve'otanu kidashta mikol ha'amim. V'shabbat kodshecha, ve'ahava u'v'ratzon, hinachaltanu, Baruch atah Adonai, mekadesh haShabbat. L'chaim.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam,
Hamotzi lachem min haaretz,
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. B'tei Avon. Please make sure to grab your challah and step out, at least under the awning, before you take your masks off. Thank you.
Shabbat shalom, everybody.
Shabbat Shalom.